I don't pray as much as I should, but every night with my 3-year-old, before he goes to bed, we make sure to say our prayers, right? There's just these basic cadences of life that I think are really powerful and really, really valuable when you have kids in your life. And the fact that so many people, especially in America's leadership class, just don't have that in their lives, I worry that it makes people more sociopathic and ultimately our whole country a little bit less, less mentally stable.
A video released by TMZ today has the left and establishment right clutching their pearls yet again. In a podcast appearance in 2020, then author and entrepreneur J.D. Vance made a point that people without children tend to be more sociopathic and less stable. J.D.'s expanded point to clarify was that children root you down. They make you grounded, more invested in the future because you have to be. That may be either a hot take to some or a based truth to others, but again, it makes J.D. Vance unapologetically who he is, pro-God, pro-family, things that are taboo, while the left pushes gender mutilation on our children. Could this return to wholesome values be the enemy of the globalist plot to break down the family and reduce our population? We now welcome someone who knows what making America great is all about, conservative political operative Vish Burra. Vish, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Chanel.
Vish, why do they hate Vance so much?
Well, first of all, I think that they hate Vance because Republicans, and particularly Donald Trump, beat the Democrats to the punch on picking a normal white guy from the Midwest as the vice presidential pick. So I think that they're first upset about that. But secondly, I also think that, these clips of Vance talking about childless Americans, childless cat ladies, childless women usually, he's in both clips, he's talking about really the left and Democrats specifically. And if you look to the numbers, if you look to the actual breakdown and statistics, he's actually got a point. Married men, married women, and unmarried men vote for Republicans consistently. The only demographic that votes heavily, about at a clip about 68%, unmarried women vote for Democrats. And so I think that ultimately this election was always going to be about energizing and turning out your base. The J.D. Vance pick was a pick to turn out Donald Trump's populist base, mainly in the Midwest, to pierce that blue wall in order to deliver him the victory on Election Day via those electoral votes in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. The left, on the other hand, is really picking on these comments by J.D. Vance, one, because they've already ran out of attacks that they could run on Donald Trump. Donald Trump is iconic, and like he said, he's literally taken a bullet for democracy. And so there's no other attack that's going to work on Donald Trump. Now they've focused their sights on J.D. Vance and are attacking him on these comments mainly to energize their base, which is unmarried women.
Now, Vish, I take issue with just saying it's the fact that someone's unmarried. I think all of us take issue with that. When you look at the contextual statements that J.D. Vance has made, they are far more nuanced. And it's not about the marital status. I know plenty of single women who, they never had the chance to get married. It just never worked out. Maybe they didn't have kids. It wasn't about their marital status that dictated the way they saw the world. It was more about what responsibilities did they take on as individuals? Did they take on responsibilities that included things that were greater than them? And that didn't have to have a family, but there is such a nuanced conversation that is merited in this case that J.D. Vance is bringing up that it gets completely erased when you have even the right jumping in and saying, this is terrible, we can't talk about things like this, erase, put this in the dustbins, and, let's forget that he ever said these things.
Yeah, I think that there's a point to be made about that there really is a nuanced conversation. And if we didn't have a hysterical corporate media, we could have those nuanced conversations. It's not just about, being unmarried,
Exactly.
Obviously, to this point of, whether you have children or not. And hey, maybe you didn't have children due to some circumstances that were out of your control. That's totally possible. But one of the roots of that argument, that nuanced argument that J.D. Vance is making, really goes back to the point of, who has the best interests of this country in mind. The founders, when they decided to basically define the intent of who should be able to vote in this country, we can criticize them talking about only white males. We can criticize them, to talk based on that race and gender basis, but it was also landowners, right? It's people who had a stake in the
Yes.
nation, present and future. And so there is something to be said about who, from a founding fathers basis, who has the right mind, mentality, and interest to think about the nation for the long term, for the future, whether that's leadership, whether that's voting, or whether that's just everyday civic life.
How do you think that the Vance campaign is handling this pressure campaign? Their reaction has been pretty steady. What's your assessment of how the Trump camp and the Vance camp have been taking this?
You know what? I love the way J.D. Vance has taken this in stride and kind of sticking to truly who he is. He went out on that stump and reminded folks about what he gave up to serve this country as a Marine. He took great sacrifices to build a business. He took great sacrifices to basically run for office, right? It's no joke even to run for office and go through the gauntlet, especially in this media environment today. And so I've really seen the Trump campaign and the Vance campaign take in stride this rather bizarre attack from the left and the Democrats, calling J.D. Vance weird. First of all, it goes back to the point that it's all about energizing the base of each party. The Democrats, again, trying to energize that base that finds, brat entertaining, right? And finds the weird label something that is going to determine who should be first in line for the presidency should, God forbid, something happen to the president, right? This is all going back to energizing their base and speaking to their base, which is, this sort of feminine-coded language. Again, James Carville, back to what he said recently in his comments, the whole preachy female problem that the Democrats have. And not only that, it's a coastal mindset that goes back to 2016. When you had guys like the guys who were running the Hillary campaign out of Brooklyn and decided to go to coastal cities and win there. And Bill Clinton was telling those folks, you need to go out to the Midwest, you need to go out to Michigan, you need to go out to Wisconsin. And they ignored it. And you're seeing the same thing. The Kamala Harris campaign and the people running it are falling into the same trap by taking this feminine-coded language with brat and weird and this sort of nonsense. This has nothing to do with the future of our country.
Vish, I also, as an added note, I think this is also a way to distract from Mrs. Vance, J.D. Vance's wife. I mean, she's an incredibly accomplished woman. She has had 3 children. She's a mother and a wife, and she supports his career as well. And that's an image that the left hates because they don't like that people like that exist, and they're on the right. And it goes against their narrative. Let's put it nicely.
It doesn't just go their narrative. AOC's calling J.D. Vance an incel already. They've progressed past. They've called this man with 3 beautiful children an incel. They've already progressed past this. They are going on a fast road to nowhere.
No, you're right. Vish, it's time now for a live edition of Mark My Words. What is your prediction for this time next year?
Well, I believe a year from now, once the Democrats are handed a decisive loss in November of 2024, I think they're going to have to recoup and start figuring out what's wrong with the party. And I think a lot of it, based on the segment that we have, is going to be about figuring out how to kind of shore up. There's too much feminine energy in the Democratic Party. So I think that they're going to look to a masculinating force, and that masculinating force is going to be trans women. And I think you're going to see trans women elevated to more leadership roles in the Democratic Party.
That's a pretty good take. I guess time will tell. Vish, Burra, thank you so much.
Thanks, Chanel.
All right, submit your predictions and your thoughts to markmywords at OANN.com. And if you haven't already, download the OAN Live app on your TV and your favorite streaming devices. Spread the word. I leave you with this. The pessimist complains about the wind. The optimist expects it to change. The realist adjusts the sails.
For all our viewers asking where One America News is heading in the future, we would like to introduce you to OAN Live. OAN Live is the best way to stay up to date on all of the hard-hitting, straight-shooting, national and international headlines. And the best part is, OAN Live is only $4.99 per month. All the credible, honest, unbiased reporting One America News offers at a fraction of the cost of cable. Just go to OANN.com to easily sign up for OAN Live and stay informed.